So I'm gonna keep. This will probably be maybe a little distracting in the room, just because it's going to be a little bit behind where we are. We're in 306, Kanoi 306, um, and so we actually have the stream going on the monitors here. But of course, it's going to be a little bit lagged. But I'm going to keep it up here just so I can see the chat window as we go. I believe audio should be coming through from my webcam microphone. It was showing up in the OBS, so I should be good. However, I suppose um, if anyone, okay, it looks like there's four people now. And am I coming through? Okay, awesome, good. So I don't have to worry about that. Okay, so what I'm also going to do before I get going here is turn off the audio in the classroom so we don't get awful feedback. So all right, cool. Well, thanks for showing up, all of you here live. And I know that I shot this out to the alum Discord basically, so those folks know I'm not expecting a huge audience, but this will be archived on my YouTube channel for later anyway. So whoever sees this now or later, welcome. And so the point of this, why I'm getting together, is actually really it's a kind of a release party of a sort, right? Because in my industry career, I never got to do any of those. Actually, it's one of the weird tragedies. I shipped many games, but I've never myself actually been part of a release party for anything. I always missed them because I either left the company, or in the case of games like BioShock, where we were like kind of contractors with them, I had gone back to my home in Wisconsin, and they were like, well, yes, here's the invite, but I was poor and couldn't afford to go to Boston just for that, right? So I never really got to do any of that. So whenever I've had any excuse to do it here at Purdue for some project, I try to do it. So that's kind of what this is. It's also a nice opportunity to reflect on all the awesome work that everyone's done really since last summer, which I really appreciate. So the first part is I wanted to get into the history of the project first, which many of you, certainly I think everyone here in person probably knows, but this is especially for anyone looking at this later. So what you're looking at here is a picture of, these are all the guitars I own. I'm trying to think if actually there's even two even that aren't in that picture because I got them later. This is what guitar does. It's not like playing trumpet where you have like one great trumpet. If you're a professional trumpet player, maybe you have a backup, right? But guitar is a very interesting disease where you buy so many of them because you could see just the variety of different looks, right? It just lends itself to that. And as you know, I am a musician. And so way back in 2020, now, of course, what was going on in 2020, right? We all know it was COVID, everyone's inside. And so I was doing a lot of music just sitting in the bedroom of my rental house at the time. I had just started at Purdue the fall before. And I made a album of sort of loop pedal based music. So for those of you that don't know what a loop pedal is, if you're not into music or whatever, it's just a guitar effects pedal that captures a musical phrase. All right, just records it basically, and then just starts replaying that phrase as a loop, right? And it kind of allows you to play along with yourself, right? And I'm certainly no great master at it. I mean, there are people that you can find on YouTube or whatever that have really fancy loop pedals and can do like, and they have like guitar and keyboard and drums set up, and it's like really intricate, and they can kind of build entire one person band things. I just have like literally the cheapest loop pedal that you could get on Amazon at the time. But I was really fascinated, especially as a jazz oriented musician, in the sort of process of that. And so I built up an entire album of music of just these loop based things. And so these compositions, what they were like is I would sit down and be like, not completely freeform improvising these things, but I would come up with like a few fragments musically that I would like. And I might even write myself some notes like, try to be like intense here and maybe less intense here, and kind of have like a rough outline, almost like you would do, I guess, in improvisatory theater, maybe, right? Where they have, if you've ever seen Curb Your Enthusiasm, which is a really really funny show, um, where the dialogue is mostly improvised, but they have a sketch, right? It's not like completely improvised from the ground up. They're operating from kind of a sketch. That's kind of how this music was done. And from here, I'll just show um, the Spotify page because it's been up since 2020. That's what it looks like. And that album cover was from literally me driving through the state of Nevada. Like, when I was moving from, I'm trying to remember if it was which direction I was going. I think it might have been, that picture might have been going from uh, Wisconsin to California, not California to Indiana. It doesn't matter. I was just really taken by the environment of that state. If you've ever driven through, Vivian, you live in California. Have you ever gone through Nevada driving? So do you kind of know what I mean? How it's like, and you kind of grew up in the American West, so maybe it doesn't quite feel like that to you. But like my feeling was this was like Mars. This is like another planet. Like because like when you go to like everywhere in the north, in the sort of northeast or the Midwest, or even when you go to like Europe or something, everyone kind of has the same green trees, right? And even areas that are mountainous all kind of have a certain sameness to them or whatever. And when you go out to not just Nevada, but even like Wyoming or Utah and all of this, it's just like this is like another planet. It seems like it's so different. And I was really taken by that. And I was also taken specifically by how lonely it was in kind of a positive way. I don't mean that negatively. But most places in America have enough population density that, you're always just a few miles away from another gas station, another town. Again, those of you that are familiar with the state know that it's not quite like that there. I mean, it could be like you're driving like 100, 150 miles before you see like another community, right? And that's like kind of odd in my experience in the United States in kind of a cool way. So um, I felt like I accidentally made a bunch of music that evoked that feeling. That was not actually my intent when I recorded that music. That was kind of a post sort of looking back and go, this feels like driving through. So that's why it has that name. And then the other thing that kind of pertains to the game narrative is that I was always curious. You would see every once in a while driving through, uh, you would see like someone's house in the middle of nowhere, right? And you're like, what in the world? What are they doing? How do they live? Like, and I get fascinated, right? And so that led to a certain amount of sort of homesteading do out there. And I even discovered that, I don't know if this is still true now in the big 2.6, but like back when I was looking into this, like you can actually buy like huge tracts of for pretty cheap because there's no utilities, there's no development, right? Like it's just land that sits there. And if you buy it, then you're like, well, now you have to dig your own well, and you have to have a generator, probably with gas, to, and all this. So a lot of things kind of converged. And then I wanted, at first, I all I wanted to do was kind of make kind of an interactive music video, right? Real small scope, just like what I tell you all to do in classes. Small scope, right? Don't go too large. Tiny things to polish. But I'm just like all of you. Ultimately, your ambition gets in the way of things. And I thought, well, wouldn't it be cool if it was like a detective story in the desert? And then I started building it and building it. So yeah, that didn't happen. Obviously, the really tiny, simple idea. So what is Nevada actually, the game, right? So it's really a small open world RPG detective, right? Is what it is. And for those of you that have taken my classes, it leverages the Purdue RPG template that we're familiar with from CDT 45. It's, I think, more properly understood is like a fork of that. Actually, the version of that that's in class now is actually a lot better because I've made a lot of really good changes to it over the years. But this was like probably one of the coolest versions of that template that I used to get this. But it is based on that template. So what is actually cool about the game? Okay, like what's neat about it? So it's got an RPG structure, but detective game aesthetics. That's kind of what fascinates me about its game design the most. Is that when you play, I like these games like Ace Attorney, L.A. Noire, on and on. Like I played Famicom Detective Club last year, for instance. Like these games that are about investigation, which really comes from those of you that take my game history classes know this, the adventure game genre and everything. However, the gameplay, while it can be quite good, and I think the Ace Attorney games do an incredible job actually of kind of fooling you and making the gameplay seem more substantive than it is, but it is ultimately trial and error, right? Like you're basically like, okay, I have these evidence items in my inventory, and I'm interviewing someone on the witness stand, and I'm just going to try every single one. Now, what they do to balance that is you have lives and health in the later Ace Attorney games, so you can't just do that infinitely unless you actually get a game over and restart. But it is essentially trial and error, whereas in this game, you are engaging in sort of Final Fantasy style turn based RPG battles, right? That are just um, sort of fictionalized as detective things. So instead of attack, you are asking a question, right? Instead of casting a magic effect, magic missile or whatever, you are trying to intimidate. You're using anger option, right? You level up like in an RPG. Now, what remains to be seen, and I hope is true of the final product, is how much story can you convey well in this format, right? Because when you do your main gameplay like this, you're focusing on the tactics of the battle now, not entirely on the story. That's kind of why Ace Attorney, L.A. Noire, all these games do it like this. My hope is the way I've structured it, where you have to constantly be going back to your journal to look at your notes, that this kind of gets you that narrative that we want to have. And then, of course, the music is a huge part of it, right? And when I say talking guitar, and it's unfortunate in this presentation, it's we are going to look at the trailer, the things that we look at in a different game, but not as much as I would hope because it is timeless. And I developed all this today at limited time, but in the RPG battles, there's no voice acting actually, and so what is in place of that is every time you do something like you hit the enemy with an attack, which is asking them a question, right? There's a guitar riff that plays along with that, and it actually does kind of. And if you look at my YouTube channel, you can find clips of this. It does kind of effectuate a kind of speech. It feels like it after a while. You actually start to think, oh, right, I recognize when you do the anger thing, correctly. You get a very specific guitar riff that comes up, and it does actually kind of sound like speech. It's kind of like I don't know how many of you are familiar with Charlie Brown, which is ancient, but like well loved. It's like the Charlie Brown teacher, right? Where it's like there's these nonsense sounds, but you kind of recognize them as speech. And I think that's really cool, actually. And hopefully, as the game gets finished, I'll still feel that way. Okay, so history of the game itself, then continuing on with that, from 2020 to 2023, I built the main game structure, created the main environment. Unreal is really good at doing this. The landscape tool is like a non-artist like me can make a fairly convincing Nevada landscape just by clever use of assets and all of this. And then just a rough pass of the game's content. There's 15 story chapters. They're all roughed in. They're all very basic, like not at all in a place where I would like them to be for the final release, but they're all present, right? I just have to go in and make the content more interesting. And incidentally, I can already see where I misspelled something in the game here. This character. it's actually misspelled. Look at that and fix that later. Or I could say it's actually spelled right. right, because it is my game, right? But no, that's not how I take it. So, anyhow, okay, so after this, the game was put on ice, and I thought for good, right? And the reason for that is I was just continuing to get more and more busy here at Purdue, and that remains true today. It's even more true now than it was. And then I was getting to do some cool funded projects. I did Stranger, which is just go to that web address later. Look at that. You can actually download it, and you will just blast through the game because obviously the Korean bits would be really easy for you. So that was a lot of fun to do. But that kind of I was doing that in place of. By the way, this is part of the photography, which both Vivian and Tommy and you and I think all played different roles in different times making there. So there you're actually taking a picture of a bear. And because the game takes place on a hunting lodge, you have the mini game activities of either hunting or photography. But I specifically wanted to include photography because not everyone actually wants to shoot animals. I certainly don't myself, right? So it's kind of one of those things where I wanted to provide the realism of yes, there's a hunting mini game, but something for myself to do, right? So hence photography. All right, so 2023 to now. So what ends up happening is last summer I revived the project because at Purdue we're really needing internship-like experiences, right? And what that means is like it's really hard to get games internships now. Tommy, you got one, a legit one, so it happens, right? But it is quite hard, and so what we need to do is find ways to get you really what an internship is supposed to do, right? Which is get you in some kind of reasonably professional environment where you're doing game development, right? And you're getting to report to somebody, and you're doing all those things you would do on a job. I mean, that's really what the idea is. Whether it happens through Sony or through Rob Howard, the end result is similar. Not to say I would hold the same weight as Sony on someone's resume, but what it does do is it gets you similar resume bullet points, right? Versus doing something like making calendars, right? Which is like what students in the past have done, things like this to fulfill that checkbox. And for most students, that's not going to be particularly helpful. So I thought I would revive this. And so we started it last summer, and it was purely for the internship credit back then. So it wasn't part of any classroom structure. And I had a really good time, even though I kept massively underestimating how much work it would take to get this game actually done on any level. I still had like a great time. And I thought, well, how can I continue this in the fall? That's when I learned about our independent study courses. We have two of them here, CGT 492, which is what this project is. That is for an independent study that is a project. CGT 498 is for ones that are research-based, right? Hence this one. There's some overlap, of course. You can have things with research components in 492. 498 can have projects, but more or less that's the framing. And so throughout the fall and spring, with everyone in this room almost, and of course, Grace, you helped us out in the summer, and glad to see you here today. Decided to do the CGT 492 thing, which let me do this as a class. Now, as far as Purdue is concerned, they don't look at this and be like, well, now you can, you can teach just two other classes now, right? Like this does not actually count for anything for me, which I don't say to sound like I'm doing anything spectacular here, other than just to say I did this because I knew having the sort of classroom wrapper would help keep me sort of focused on it, and it would give you the credits, right? Like that's sort of a form of compensation. That's just 3 more or 2 more or 1 more, however many credits you picked. it gets you to that 120 credits just a little bit faster, right, for graduation. So it's a nice exchange of goods and services. But what that did do, sort of the flip side of that, is once I made that decision, I can no longer just put it on Steam commercially myself because now it is owned by Purdue now. Right? I can be in it and make it part of a class, and I knew that going in. I wasn't ignorant to that. But like, while I hope this game does really well commercially, of course, that's not really why I'm doing it at the end of the day. So I thought, whatever, I'll deal with that. Now, the good news there is I was able to reach an agreement with PRF, that's Purdue Research Foundation. And so what they do in cases like this, and this is where no one else in my department, I think, has done this quite this way. I understand, right? And I think the Purdue Research Foundation has not had a, I'll put it carefully, a straight, purely for entertainment based video game. I think they've had some, very typical Purdue, research that happens to be kind of a game type things come by their desk. But in terms of like, because they ask you these questions, like when you're getting the licensing, like, what great world problem is this solve? I'm just like, boredom? Yes. Right? So, but they were really cool to work with, actually, very understanding of my questions. So that's all done. And in the process of that, I actually had to form an LLC because they require that. So now I get all this junk mail from people that try to sell things to an LLC. So that's great. But that's kind of cool, though. It is cool. Okay, so what I wanted to do here is pivot to the student work specifically, right? Why you're all here, right? Is all of the stuff that you provided. And of course, this is actually one of Vivian's evidence sketches. That's a riff on Reese's Peanut Butter Cup, my favorite candy. And that's actually a great example of there's numerous pieces of what I call junk evidence that actually isn't helpful, doesn't like advance the story, but it's just there. You pick it up and you do it in your inventory. You have to have the junk evidence, I think, because then otherwise it becomes too easy then, right? It's like, well, what evidence do I pick during the battles, right? So you get some items in there that, and you have the ability to examine, right? So you click on the examine button and it tells you what the evidence is. So it should be pretty clear that, oh, this is a candy wrapper. It has nothing to do with anything. You just happen to pick it up because you thought it might have something, right? But anyway, we're going to start with Alexia and her contributions here. And yeah, we have many really cool things. The teaser trailer we're going to be looking at later came from Alexia, so that's awesome. And you're like a film minor, is that right? Double major, okay, even better. Yeah, so that was really awesome to derive that benefit, right? To go through trailer. And also, as an honor student who submitted to me a sort of a marketing, not necessarily, I think, plan so much as research into in-game marketing or whatever, which this is the final week thing. I promise I'll look at that soon. I'm sure, I give it a quick scan. It looks good, but I need to actually like digest what you've worked hard to prevent there. And then you did a whole bunch of evidence props, the jukebox model, some hero props, the light rig, and what I have to point out here is that one of the things I learned is that I cannot let you all use your Maya student licenses because that's not legal. I can't actually sell it, unless I either lie, which I'm not going to do. Other people, I'm sure, do that, but I'm not. Or you can do this sort of pseudo line that I cannot endorse either, where you basically take a Maya thing, kind of, it's almost like money laundering, but you're doing it with models. So you take it Maya, put it in Blender, just so it becomes a Blender, and so what I did is I asked you to learn, and you did a great job. Thank you for that. Yeah, it's definitely worth some applause. Yeah. So yeah, and by the way, these things, they're not going to be all inclusive. I'm not going to capture every single thing everyone did, unfortunately, but these are just sort of the highlights here. Okay, so Yuna, so you did a lot of work on this rhythm mini game that I think is going to be like a really cool centerpiece in terms of our mini game stuff goes. And what I really appreciate about that, I think, is that so the music that I play and like, generally speaking, makes my family want to kill me. All right, like I'm just going to be honest here, and to be fair to them, it's it's like I'm in a spare bedroom and I'm doing this stuff and it's out of any context, so all they're hearing is just loud guitar, just blasting through the hallways. I mean, that's not going to be always pleasant, no matter what it is, right? Uh, but like, I'm always thinking, gosh, he was working with all this like sort of aggressive, weird, angular, jazzy guitar I do, but you actually seem to like the stuff, right? Which I'm deeply touched by. Really, enough for you to do a rhythm mini game with it, which means you're listening to it over and over again. Um, you might like the music more than I liked it now, right? Possibly. But more than that, though, you did tons of scripting support for hunting, photography, UI work, menu systems. So what we're looking at on the slide is kind of your sketch for the pause menu, which looks almost exactly like this. A game that kind of post-it note the upper left is where sort of game objectives go, and that was something else I think you did as well, is the game objective system. And I don't want to like sort of minimize this, the developer cheats have really come in handy. The warping, especially, because my game does violate something that I actually mark points off for you all when you do, which is I think there's a lot of traversing in a big open environment. Now, I hope that we've added enough things that that's actually not horrible, right? But when you're testing, right, like, and you're not playing the game for real, all that traversal is just awful. So, like, being able just to hit tab and just warp to a waypoint, I've used that. So thank you so much for that. And I did actually want to take a moment here if I can find where to go. This computer gets sometimes weird about that. Oh, I skipped ahead. Didn't want to do that yet. It's my mouse. Okay. I wanted to just show off one of your video updates that you made. So I'm going to depart my slide, go to YouTube. Hope that works. It's going to take me a moment here to pull this up. Okay, there we go. Okay, so I'm going to dare any sound play in here. I'm a little afraid to do that. I have not actually played around with this. That music is really cool. That's really awesome. So um, I think that's just really great work, and I know you had to do a lot of R&D to make that happen. So uh, thank you so much for that. And we should give a round of applause to you for that, actually. All right, so making me happy. Now let's go to Tommy here. All right, so you did lots and lots of stuff, but of course I'm going to feature heavily here in golf cart racing, right? Because I just adore golf cart racing. So what this is I really wanted to have some means to traverse the map because of that issue I was bringing up before, right? And so one of the things on Fab that existed, in fact, this was before Fab, this was when it was just a store, was there was a golf cart. And I thought, well, it's not inconceivable that you would have these out there, right? Maybe not quite on terrain this rough, but it's not inconceivable. And it was available, and it was cheap. Because, of course, this is all coming out of my own wallet, right? So I acquire this, it works pretty well, I have it in the game, but I thought, in a lot of games that have a vehicle, there's some kind of vehicle racing thing, right? Just hit the sort of rings or whatever as you go. So I had Tommy cook up this. Now, the newest version actually looks improved as there's been some updates to the circle that look nicer, um, all of that. So this has been improved in this version. But I just love that we have this now. And by the way, all the new games actually do affect the player's stats. You do actually get stat buffs from tweaking, so they're not just for fun. There is kind of a systemic effect there as well. So beyond the really awesome part pieces, though, there's lots of menu system. You're Mr. Menu at right? Like, and Campfire is kind of a simple. It's basically our audio, right? It's our immersive audio, and also you wrote the story for that, which have back over and kind of made really cool. So thank you for that as well. You did some work in the evidence system, which is just in the midst of a mission, a game mission, you walk around and pick up evidence. But the way I had it before was you walk around the entire map and see in this animated bit with the golf cart what the map is. So if you're trying to find evidence that's just in like one little sector of this map, and you just start wandering, you could get hopelessly lost. So he implemented one of those boundaries that takes it, so that way you can the player and you're not lost forever trying to find on the side. There's lots of quality of life improvements as well. Um, Dave often similar go to a web page at that stage. So it's right, because it does have an example of the boundary. So you can see how nice that looks there and how that looks to traversal. All right, so round of applause for Tom. Okay. Okay, Vivian. I say at the bottom, she has checked out so much, right? And of course, part of it is the independent set of variable credits, right? So, um, some of you have one credit, two or three credits, so that's part of it. But actually, just beyond that, like I was just, hey, can you evidence how actually have it play this image on this like just I'm just dumping all the stuff on you. Oh yes, you offered 2 days for a class that I got set up. Don't tell that. Okay. You have to so I've been really impressed with just how much I can work output. Just a couple of highlights. Here, obviously, here is cabin that we kind of as a sort of log cabin. It's sort of easy, sort of a structure for our villain design. That's not really a spoiler. One thing I haven't intended to get in the game, but you will be told straight away who the murderer is. And then your job is to help the player or help the main character rather find out, as opposed to wondering the whole darn time who did it. So I'm not spoiling anything here by saying that. But like what this used to be before Vivian's awesome model was, it was just like a tiny little shack. right? A sad, tiny little shack that our villain lived in. And the whole premise is that he's like selling government surplus stuff for huge money and doesn't want to be found out that he's doing this, right? So having a tiny shack made no sense. If you've ever like TV shows like Columbo that I love to death, right? They always do this thing where the murderer is usually some rich person in fabulous location. It's like a trick. It makes their downfall more fun, basically, right? And it's more visually interesting. So that's awesome there. What you're looking at here at the bottom, this is another one of our junk evidence items, like that doesn't actually like move the story forward, but it's there. But the reason why I have this slide is because there's kind of um, an indie game that we're friends with, so to speak, right? Because it's a good friend of mine who actually still works in the industry. A hard surface artist, Conrad Honey. He's spoken at Purdue events before. It has been very nice. He's making a game called Fear of Sleep, which has a playable demo on Steam, and he's just absolutely killing it. There's a Purdue alum, one of my former students, Zoe, who is working with Conrad and doing an incredible job. Um, and so this is a screenshot from Fear of Sleep. And so what we kind of did is a thing where um, he's going to have stuff from Nevada in his game, and I'm going to have stuff from his game in ours. Right? It's kind of a cool tip of the cap. And maybe someday we can sort of absurdly claim they're in the same cinematic universe, which would be really weird. Because Fear of Sleep is a sci-fi kind of dystopian future thing, but like whatever, right? That happens sometimes in Hollywood. Like I think Time Cop is in the same cinematic universe as Predator, for instance. Weird things like that. Um, and so also I did want to take a quick look here at Vivian's portfolio, which gives us another look at other cool things that have been contributed here, some of the models that have been done. Um, this is kind of in that sort of government base area, or at least that's it's meant to come from there. And then I do want to point out this is the game over screen. Um, so Vivian did an awesome game over animatic for us. That's so cool. It's actually in the trailer that you'll see later. Um, and so there is that. Waiting. It's funny. Everyone in the room is actually watching the delayed YouTube, so I have to wait for that to happen. There we go. So awesome job, Vivian. Okay, I did want to point out other contributors that were not a I mentioned Grace. Grace Uhas, who is here. Thank you so much for coming. Right, so we'll give you a round of applause. Um, and so Grace worked with us last. So you've already seen your titles, and sort of logo and all that. All that really, what you did that was so cool about that was kind of looked at how he looked at the time and within your own style that you have kind of gave something that fit really like love there. And just like with Alexia, actually, how you got on this project, I'm just looking at CGT 305 portfolio. And I'm just looking at like who's good at stuff, right? And this is how I get people that don't even see in person. Now I would see you in hallways and stuff. And actually, I met you for the first time at the senior dinner thing last week or whatever. Um, but yet you did all this. Um, so awesome! Thank you so much for that. Ishret, it's not your character material work as well. That pause. All right. Now, what are my plans? Right now, what am I doing with this going forward? Because I was so I'm going to definitely digest Lexi's work out, Mark, all that, take all that stuff apart. I need so I have no idea. Market anything. That's you're a games and professional. You're just making game kind of narrow. Not Mark, not selling. Now I have actually the Research Foundation. Now, they're not going to like send ninjas to my house and assassinate. They actually have like we want you to try to get this red target by this time, and I remember, yeah, yes, like there'll be actual check-ins, and because Purdue perspectively, every time a copy of the bond is sold, they get months. So they actually have an interest in that. I'm sure it's now how important that to them. Again, that's there are people that develop answer tools and like you know sort of computer science marvels. So, these are the things the research foundation, uh, like the SK Hynix semiconductor plant. And that's all. So they're really tight. So my little thing is not going to, they're not going to be that worried about it. But they do make you go through the motions, right? Of actually like, yes, we expect you to try to do this, right? Which is really good for me. I'm actually glad helping me. So May, early June, I do teach summer classes here. So most of my time on that, but I'll try to, because I will have more time like with the sun right now. But really, the work is going to really finally work full time on this, which I've been itching to do really since last summer. And this is where I'm really rolling the speeds, trying to make this thing happen. So what does that mean? It's live, smart reaching out to streamers, influencers. I said, so I go there, build a specific website for it. So, and then on the development side, finish the critical path of the content. Um, and so, going into July, then I want to do once the critical path content is done, I want to be printing out a stability, right? All I tell you, right? Because they're on bugs. And then in July, start true, honest to goodness, like the threshing bug test. Uh, by August, the hope is actually finished integrating content, actually finished. I've already pressure bearing down. So that should it's a passion project. Absolutely want like you know how it is like this, especially have a job. But, even though this is synergistic with that job, it's still not fights. So okay, post release. What do I do? So the goal is not necessarily sales, though I'm not changing the future, right? Obviously. And by the way, I'll say very briefly that, and I have later this summer as I go to sit down and figure out what happens if lottery tickets and this actually starts that gets something, right? And I would figure that out. So understand that I don't expect that to happen because most of the games they go out constant dives. But if that does happen, I'm certainly not going to do it to that time. So, anyway, what I'm really looking for is, and this is really where it matters for career and if you look at sort of external any like any person that's not you or you is going to be really helpful after you're actually to tell
So that kind of that's a big part of our promotions and the documents. That was, they're always looking for is okay, this really painful animation. Just throw it up on your website. It's fun. But Kotaku talked about it. Did GameDeveloper.com call it? It cited the index. That's this. This is the odd one. It doesn't have to be good. That's getting excited. I have last. I went four. In order four, I have to that. That's right. So I mean, writing, academic writing, and conferences, lots of writing. That's definitely a release. Now, sales themselves, right, does do well on Steam. That is also that's actually market actually try. Kids any substance at all. So, all right. So, thank you to everyone here and people watching online later. So, we have two things left. Actually, as far as the live stream goes, we have two. So, as far as the stream, we're going to look at the trailer. Then I'm going to go over the button that opens up the Steam page. That's the whole point of all this, right? The Steam page unveiling. And then the one thing that you will close down the screen for, because the screen, I have a bunch of Nevada posters, different designs. For that, you'll notice that there's a bunch of silver sharks. So before everyone leaves, what you'll do is we're going to line all those up on the basket behind me. And I want everyone this time to open it myself, and then you'll take one home. Right? And I'll have like a and real quick on the poster, I know they're not perfect or resonance. Sorry, and I had to like them apart scissors, but like they still came out the way. And you know, it's nice if the park has the food otherwise party service. All right, so let's go ahead and look at the trailer. Now I have to do sound for this, so make sure that's good. So try to push that. Oh, all right, awesome job. Yeah, with that trailer, Alexia. And you'll be able to see that later. It's on my YouTube channel as well, so it's not just how did that happen? How did I do this? What in the world? Sorry. I somehow opened up a geometric bright triangular background video saver. All right, so and I had audio coming from, I think, a random tab of Spotify as well. So great. Like I said, I'm a noob when it comes to YouTube and OBS. So, but nonetheless, that's the trailer. And again, it is on my YouTube channel, so you can check it out there as well. And it is going to be on the Steam page. And now it's time. I'll wait for the YouTube feed to catch up on this. All right, here we go. Here's the post as coming soon. I've been waiting to do this forever, so I'm gonna count down from 5, and it'll be weird because it's gonna come later on the screen here, of course. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. I'm waiting for. Did it register by click? I'm not even sure if it registered my click. Okay. Because, see, here's the thing. You've all done this, actually, and I have not, as a matter of fact. I'm not sure why that button is being weird on me like that. Yeah, it could be. Yeah. Yeah, actually, it probably is that. Yeah. Okay, I think there it is. Yeah. All right, and I'll confirm that later. But as far as I can tell, it looks like I've done all the things that I've had to do. So anyone that watches this online later now, thank you for watching. Hopefully, I'll have a lot more stuff come out this summer when I actually start to work on this. So I'm going to go ahead and say goodbye to the stream, and we'll get going with signing all the posters. All right, thank you, everyone.